Played that out in my mind when I asked you that question this morning. I'm glad none of you sort of pulled your shirt to the side and showed me your holster and started to pull out your weapon. But what are you packing today? What are you packing for when the pastor's going to preach long? What are you packing in your life today? Because we're going to talk about one of the miracles of Jesus, but we're going to talk about it being a miracle in probably a different way than you ever thought about. Jesus is out with his disciples and a crowd begins to gather, as you've read, and as Jesus shares, teaches, and preaches, the hours roll by until it's late in the afternoon, and being late in the afternoon, the disciples come to him and say, you know, there's a lot of hungry people out here because you've been preaching all day. You might want to cut it off a little bit. No, you might want to get them something to eat because we're out in a remote area and there's really no place to eat. And that's the beginning of the first miracle that we sometimes skip over because we're not familiar with that type of society. How many of you have ever been to a third world society or even a European society? You've been there. The idea of daily bread is very much ingrained because you don't go to a grocery store to buy some bread with preservative in it that's going to keep it for a week, 2 weeks, okay, up to a month sometimes. That's why they put dates on that bread, by the way. But you don't just go to a grocery store. You have to buy your bread every day for your daily needs because they don't put preservatives in it. They bake it at a makeshift bakery, and each day you go and buy your provision, your daily bread, just for that day. Excuse me. Now, I've seen this work in a couple different ways. When I was in Haiti, and Jay's been to Haiti, when they go get the bread, they go early in the morning to get the bread for the afternoon meal because the bakery bakes bread in the morning, and when it's gone, it's gone. They won't make any more bread till the next day. So they go very early in the morning to get the bread so that we can have bread for supper. But they purchased it really sometimes before breakfast so that they can have it for the afternoon meal because they only bake in the morning, and when it's gone, it's gone. You can't go to the grocery store and get your daily bread. I was reminded from that, being in Haiti, of a donut shop back in Pennsylvania, Orum's Donuts. And some of you have tasted them. They are huge, what you would call cinnamon rolls that are about this big around, woven together, or in a spiral, with glaze all over the top of them. And when they are warm, they are out of this world. But you can't eat one all by yourself. You have to share. But I was reminded that I used to love those donuts. In fact, I used to go down in school and get them, and that's probably why I'm hypoglycemic today. But I can't have them anymore. But I used to go down every day and get an Orum's donut and maybe a quart of milk. I don't even know. Do they sell quarts of milk? An Orum's donut and a quart of milk, and that would be my breakfast for the day.
Fine.
No, I think it was a quart. It was that. Okay. But anyhow, was reminded that if you wanted to have that Orum's donut, you had to get there before 9 o'clock because they made those every morning, and they were almost all gone, always gone by 9 o'clock, at least always gone by 10 o'clock. If you didn't arrive before 10 o'clock, you were not going to get your Orum's donut, and you were going to have to wait till the next day because they made them every day in the morning, but they were gone by 10 o'clock. Now, side note to that Orum's donut story is that Chris used to love Orum's donuts. When we were first dating, I would take them to her. Oh, they were wonderful. And she would take them to work, and all the girls at work just loved them. Until one day, Chris went with me to get the donuts. The thing that I didn't tell you about these Orum's donuts is that they were made. Orum's Donut Shop is an old dress shop, and the donuts are displayed in the dress display cases. Just little racks up in there, and what used to be an area where you would try on your dresses in this dress shop is the bakery, and you can see straight back through there. It's not separated from the rest of the store, and you would be greeted by the baker who baked the Orm donuts, who wore a whole white baker suit. At least at some point in time it was white. And he wore this big hat that was, the big white baker's hat. Well, at least at some point in time it was white. He wasn't the cleanliest baker, and the bakery was a complete disaster and a mess back there. But they made the best donuts. But once Chris walked in and saw that, she wasn't having any more Orm donuts. To this day, when we go back and I'll say, "You want an Orm donut?" No. But you have to get the bread in the morning to prepare for the afternoon. And that's where Jesus and the disciples found themselves at this point in time. It was late in the afternoon. They hadn't prepared and bought bread earlier in the morning for these 5,000 men. Now, that's another miracle that's going on here that we sometimes pass over. We want to say the feeding of the 5,000, but it was only 5,000 men. That's all that qualified to count in those days. There was probably women and children there too. So upwards of 750,000 or 7,500 people that they would have had to buy bread for, to feed. And in fact, Philip, one of the disciples, says in another rendering of this, in one of the other Gospels, says 8 months' wages would not even begin to put one biteful of bread into everyone's mouth. 8 months' wages. There was an impossibility of getting bread for everyone that was there, because it wouldn't matter how much money you had. There was no bakery open. There was no store to go buy it. It wasn't there. But Jesus brought it out of nothing, if you will. That's the first miracle that I think we sometimes overlook, is that Jesus brought this feeding of the 5,000 out of nothing. For they were out in a remote place. There was no place to buy bread. They hadn't brought any along. They were without anything. Yet Jesus provided in this huge way that everyone ate their fill. And if you read through the end of the chapter, they picked up 12 basketfuls of leftover after everyone had eaten their fill. A very big miracle is going on in our midst here. But it's not completely just Jesus multiplying the bread and the fish. When the disciples discover that these people are getting hungry, because the disciples are getting hungry, they come to Jesus and they say, we should let them go, so that they can go into somebody's house and try to find some food, try to find somebody to take them in, even for the night, so that they can have some place to stay. And Jesus comes back with a remark to them, a statement to them that stuck in my mind these last 3 weeks. Jesus replies to the disciples when they say that these people are hungry and they need something to eat and he should do something. Jesus says these words to the disciples: "You give them something to eat." And thank you, Billy, for reading that exact way today. You give them something to eat. I want you to turn to the person next to you and I want you to tell them that same statement. You give them something. And say it like that.
You give them something.
What's the first thing that's running through your mind right now? What am I going to do? I don't have anything, thank you. That's what runs through our minds. When someone says that we need to give something, that's our first reaction. I don't have anything. I don't have anything to give. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to give. What do you mean? I can't cook. I can't find bread. What am I going to do? And we begin to scramble because we feel that we don't have anything to give. Disciples said the same thing. As I shared, Philip shares 8 months' wages couldn't begin to buy even enough to put one bite of bread into everyone's mouth. It's an impossible thing. We can't do anything about it. We don't have anything to give. Let me say something. Each one of those disciples were packing something. And they'd been packing it for a while. Just like when they went out into the crowd and they find a young boy that has been packing. He packed a lunch. None of the disciples had done that. They had been around Jesus teaching for a long time. They knew how long that preacher went. But they didn't bring a lunch. They didn't pack anything, so to speak. But a young boy in the crowd is found that was packing. And he was packing 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. Notice the emphasis that is used there. They weren't 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. They were 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. Emphasis on small. Not only did they have very little to work with, Jesus did, but it was even small. They weren't normal size. They were for a boy. But a young boy was found that was packing. And he said to the disciples, I have 5 loaves and 2 small fish. I can give that. You know what? God asks us to give at many, many different times. And when we run into problems or we see problems happening around us, God tells us those very words that you just told to your neighbor. You give something. And our first reaction to God is, I don't have anything. I don't have nothing to give. After I said those words to you, that was probably your first reaction, you don't have anything to give. Where did your mind go after that? Did you begin to think of some of the things that you do have? Let me start your mind working. When we come across a problem and God says to us, you give something, and we think in our minds, I don't have anything to give. I can't do anything to help that. Think of what you have in your bag. Most of you, I'm sure, woke up in a bed today, didn't you? Hopefully. Yeah. Most of you probably woke up in a home that had a roof over the top of it, correct? Put that down. That's something you have. Now, most of you probably woke up warmer than the 4-degree outside temperature in your house this morning, right? So it means you have a furnace and you have some heat. You probably went and ran some water into a little machine that gave you some black gold, as Tim would call it. And you started your morning. You have running water inside your house. You probably went to get ready today inside your house in your inside bathroom. But you don't have anything to give. You probably went out and got into a car that you may have started remotely, so it was warm when you got in there, and you drove to church. But you don't have anything to give. You probably put on some nicer clothes than you would normally wear during the week, and you wore them to church today, but you don't have anything to give. You see where I'm going with this? We always want to tell God that we don't have anything to give before we think of what we do have, that we keep packed in our bag. Jesus does this miracle with 5 small loaves of barley bread and 2 small fish. Now, I said earlier in the service that I have a very strange mind, and here it goes working again. What if this boy wouldn't have brought his packings to give to Jesus to use? Would the people have gone away hungry? No. Jesus would have done the miracle with absolutely nothing. But would it have been as big a miracle as using these 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish? No. Because what makes this the biggest miracle of all is that the young boy willingly brought forth what he had packed away for him to give to Jesus to use. When Jesus tells the disciples, you give them something, in my sick mind, I think this young boy is in earshot. And when the disciples are all, we don't have anything to give, I think the young boy's mind works like this. Well, I have this. Can you use that, Jesus? Can you do something with that? A long time ago, even before we came here, when we changed banks, we went to a debit card. And we've become very accustomed to, for years and years, I very rarely have any cash on me. I use the debit card, or it's actually a credit card right now, but I use a credit card for everything. It comes straight out of our checking account. We're not charging it, but I don't carry cash on me usually. And many times, people will stop me, "Sir, can you give me $1? Sir, can you help me do this?" And my comment to them is instantly always, "I don't have any money on me, but I'll go buy you a cup of coffee, or I'll go get you something to eat." And I have done that before. I have taken people back into McDonald's when they catch me outside McDonald's, back into Burger King when they catch me outside Burger King, and bought them a meal. But I began to think, what does that say about me, that my first comment is just what the disciples always want to say to Jesus in this instance? You give them something, and my instant reaction is, "Well, I don't have any money on me." And that's my easy way out. Because I got to be honest, sometimes that is my easy way out. Oh, I don't have to give them anything because I don't have any money. But then I think, well, I can very easily walk back in and buy them something. Or if I'm somewhere else, I can take them somewhere in my car and get them what they're asking for. Do I have nothing to give? No, I have a lot to give. And God always has a good sense of humor, because there have been times where I have money in my pocket for one reason or another, and almost always when I have money in my pocket, someone will stop me and say, can you help me out? Can you do me this? Can you give me some gas? And I've even been in situations where, I've been in conversation with different people, and not people begging on the street, but just in conversation, and we're talking about a need that is in the church or in a group of people or in a family. And just when I begin to think and say to myself, well, I don't have any. Oh, I do. I have that $20 that so-and-so gave me. Oh, I have that $10 that I got for my birthday. Oh, I have that. Yeah. Ouch. God, you got a good sense of humor. You see, I want to keep that packed in my pocket because that's in there for special reasons. It's in for things for me. I want to save that $20 because I want to get myself something special for my birthday. I want to save that $10 because it's supposed to go for something for my wife. Or I want to save that because I know I got this bill due at the end of the week. But God says, you give them something. You give them something to eat. Give them out of what you're packing away for yourself. The young boy perks up and says, Jesus, can you use this? This is all I have. But if it'll help, I'll give it. Pay attention to those words I just said. If it'll help, I'll give it. I have been with people, and I'm not going to mention any names at all today, but I've been with people many different times when there is a need that arises in the midst, and because we don't have enough to fill the need completely, we keep our mouths shut because we don't want to just offer a little bit because we can't help, because we don't have enough to complete the need. This young boy didn't have enough to complete the need. 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fishes do not feed 5,000 people. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure that out. The young boy knew that. He knew he didn't have enough to even make a dent in the problem and in solving it. But whatever he had, he was willing to give because he knew Jesus could use it. And Jesus could multiply it. And Jesus could do the miracle with it. I know some of you are already starting to figure this out. Oh, the pastor always in January does things on giving. Yep, we're talking about giving today. We're talking about what you're packing away that you're thinking you don't have. That you're thinking that won't help out at all. That won't complete the need. That God isn't calling you to give. But God says to each of us, you give them something. And if our answer is, I don't have anything. I don't have any money. I don't have any extra money. I don't have any food, extra food, not to help all those people out. I don't have any extra talent because I can't do anything. I don't have any abilities that can be used in that instant because what I know how to do, how can that help those people? I don't know. The young boy, I'm sure, didn't think that his 5 little loaves and 2 fishes were going to help the 5,000. But it wasn't about completing the need. It wasn't about fulfilling the need yourself. It was about being a part of the miracle that Jesus was about to do. I don't know whether this boy had been following Jesus for a long time. I don't know whether he'd seen other miracles. But he knew that Jesus could take what he had and do some mighty things with it. We are not a large congregation by far. Look around. You can see all the empty spots. But Jesus takes what we give him and multiplies it greatly. That you can sit in a building today that is heated, that has running water, that has a building over there that you can play basketball in, has a building over there that the kids are meeting in. This is not a small church. God has blessed greatly with what has been given. God has multiplied greatly what has been given. Just this past week, once again, we were out looking at a short bus, as Billy would like to call it, to purchase. How's that happen? How's that happen from a small church that we look around and say, wow, we need to get some more people in here? How does that happen? It's from people giving what they have packed. Those 5 small loaves and 2 small fish. And saying, God, this isn't much, but it's what I have. And I know you've given it to me. And since you said I need to give something, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to let you do the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 with what you've given me. That goes for money. That goes for talent. That goes for time. That goes for abilities. It's amazing what God can do with all of the stuff that we don't think we have. This past week, I think God has a good sense of humor too, because whenever he knows I'm speaking on something, he just keeps pounding my life with what that really means. I have been overwhelmed this past week watching individuals give of their time, their talent, their money, giving of themselves in ways that I'm sure I could very easily say, I don't have anything to give. But they've given what they had. They've done what they could do. And it's amazing what God does with that when we offer him up what we're packing. What's in your bag today? And I know many of you are wondering what's in my bag. I'm not going to show you. So that's not the end of the sermon. I'm not going to show you. But what's in your bag? What are you packing? Is it money that you're packing away for a rainy day? Is it money that you're packing away for your retirement? Is it money that you're packing away for that special person? Is it money that you're packing away? I don't know. I don't think most of us seated in here have probably more than 2 nickels to rub against each other, but If it's money that you're packing away, maybe that's what God's speaking to you. Is it time that you're packing away? Saying, I'd like to help, but I don't have time. I'd like to do that for so-and-so, but I don't have time. What are you packing your time for? Is it talent that you're packing away? When you see something that he's done and you begin to say those words, no, I can't really do that. No, I'm not good enough at that. No, I can't do that. God hasn't blessed me with the abilities to do that. What are you packing it away for? What are you packing it away for? Maybe it's abilities. What I watched in action this week was people that have abilities that probably would not say that they have anything to give, but I've watched them use those abilities that just amazed me of what God did with those abilities. When God says to you, you give something, and you say to him, I don't have anything to give. I don't have any money. I don't have any time. I don't have any ability. And I don't have any talent. I wish God would say back to each of us when we say that, what are you packing? And who are you packing it for? When Jesus shared with the disciples, you give them something, he was speaking to you and I too. There's a hurting world out there. There's a needing world out there. And we have the ability, we have the time, we have the talent, we have the money to be able to share it with them. To be able to feed them what they need to eat. To give them Jesus as the one that's going to change their world. But when God says to us, go out and make disciples of all nations, you give them something. What are you packing? What are you packing? What am I packing? My prayer is that each one of us this week will open up our bag. Take a look inside. And do that very same thing. Wow. I have a lot to offer, don't I, God? I have a lot that I could give. I see it now. And I'm going to go out and do it. I'm going to give from what I've been packing. Because that's what you've asked me to do. I'm going to give of my time, my talent, and my tithe. I'm going to give of my abilities that I know you've given me. And give them to Jesus. And let him use them. Let him multiply them. Let him do the miracle that he has for each of us in our lives and us corporately as a church. And you'll be amazed at what God can do. And don't worry. If you think that you're giving it away and you're not going to have what you want,